Episode 23. Is it safe to share my emotions? Welcome back to One Extraordinary Marriage, where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of intimacy. You're here with Elisa DiLorenzo.
And Tony DiLorenzo.
And tonight we're going to be talking about whether or not your marriage is a safe place to share your emotions, to be real with your spouse.
That's right.
It's one of those things that we wrestle with, and I think it's going to make for some lively conversation tonight.
I agree.
I think we're going to have lots of lively conversation. It's kind of been one of those days.
One of those weeks.
One of those weeks.
It's been good.
Mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly.
Last week we talked to you guys and told you guys about our shift from a lot of processed foods, and we're going to start trying to go organic and eat healthier and cleaner foods. And tonight we had a little fiasco with all that. It's, whenever you start making food changes, I think any of you can understand this that have done this before or in the past, is whenever you start shifting from what you've eaten in the past and are going to start eating, there is a learning curve. And
I broke the cardinal rule of all Italian wives.
Which is?
I ruined the pasta.
Well, let's go back.
I ruined the pasta.
Well, let's go back to Friday night when the shark we had was ruined.
Well, that was a combination of we ran out of propane. That was just a fiasco night trying to do too much with the kids' school.
All I remember
festival.
is Alex saying, "Mom, this doesn't taste like meat."
That's what the guy at the butcher shop or at the meat fish counter told me. He's like, "Oh, it tastes like steak. I don't even like fish, and I like eating shark." Well, I tell you, the shark that we had tasted very, very fishy. So I don't know if it was a bad...
And chewy and nasty.
It was just a fiasco night.
And then the bean soup you made as well wasn't cooked all the way.
Yeah, I think that little crock pot was dying on me. So, so since Friday, it's just been...
Well, tonight you were pretty darn upset with me when I spit the pasta out into the sink.
Yeah, I was not happy.
Yeah, you're actually smiling right now, which is really good, because that was only 2.5 hours ago.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, I was not happy.
You weren't.
Two little bodies completely underfoot, and yeah.
You're very frustrated.
I know. Abby asked me about 4 times. Are you frustrated? That's when I use my words. I tell everybody that I'm frustrated.
You did well.
I was,
I think you just ate that pasta out of spite, didn't you?
Partly.
I figured that.
But did you notice that both the kids ate the pasta?
It sucked.
It was not that bad.
It was nasty.
It was brown rice pasta. And, I followed the directions on the package, and it said cook for 15 minutes. And so at 10 minutes, I was like, let me just check it. And it was still hard. Well, somehow in 5 minutes, it went from being hard to being more done than Tony likes.
It was gross. That's all I'm saying.
The texture or the taste, actually, okay, besides the fact that it was too mushy for you, the taste was not bad.
Because I didn't get past that.
No.
I put it in my mouth and I spit it out.
Cardinal rule of an Italian wife, you don't ever mess with the pasta.
I'm not saying we can't mess with the pasta. I'm saying
we need to overcook the pasta.
We need to have pasta that I can eat. I want to make this shift from what we are eating, because I truly believe that what we are putting into our bodies are affecting our moods and our what's the word I'm looking for?
Personality?
Not our personality. Our energy level. I know it's having a direct effect on how that affects us. So I want to make the shift. It's just I want to be able to eat every night. And right now I'm eating 1 out of every 3 nights, and that's not cutting it. I mean, I can only eat so many cashews and vegetables and fruit. I need substance, which tonight I rolled. We did have some chicken.
I did have the chicken.
And I just made my spinach salad and threw some chicken on top. I understand that, but good. I was ready for some pasta. So
yeah. So that's my struggle right now. Just learning how to recook and reshop when I'm more focused on not having all the preservatives and the prepackaged foods. And those of you that have already done this and have sent us information, thank you. I really do appreciate the book resources and the website resources that have been coming our way. That's a huge help. And, part of it's just learning a new skill.
It is.
And that takes a little bit of time. And I think what I need to do is not try so many new meals in a row.
Right.
I think that would help us. But the kids actually are doing very well. They are making great choices because they have no other choices, and they're really not being very whiny or complaining about it. I'm a little surprised at them.
I think the kids have done very well with this change, other than yesterday when Abby ate way too many cherries and her belly was hurting her.
Yeah. Figured that out this morning when she woke us up at 5 a.m. with a poopy diaper.
Yeah, that poor girl ate. I went to the farmer's market with the kids yesterday, and we bought 2 pounds of cherries, and we polished off 2 pounds of cherries yesterday. They were so delicious, organically grown.
Plus probably half a pound of blueberries.
Half a pound of blueberries. Very, very good. I mean, they were just so delicious, but poor Abs, she
apparently ate most of that 2-pound bag.
And she was in utter pain. But we got to church last night. We got to church.
She pulled it off.
Yeah,
she pulled it off. So we've had the whole meal fiascos this week.
Mm-hmm. What else has been going down?
I launched the Busy Moms podcast.
Busy Moms podcast has done fantastic.
That went up, and recorded that I think Tuesday or Wednesday, and have just been blown away already by the sense of community that is developing with women talking about their roles as wives and mothers. Mm-hmm. The podcast, for those of you that haven't listened to it, was born out of conversations that I've had specifically with women, not only in my own personal circle here in San Diego, but also online. Mm-hmm. Those of you that we've met through One Extraordinary Marriage, and we start talking about the struggles that women have juggling all these many hats, being busy moms. Mm-hmm. And really just kind of felt over the last few weeks, it's probably been a couple months now.
It's been a couple months that we've been talking about
that I needed to put a voice to what sometimes remains unspoken. Mm-hmm. Struggles over how do I balance everything? How do I, make time for myself and not feel guilty about it, which is a huge one, a huge issue for moms. How do I, take care of the kids but make sure they're not over scheduled and, juggle all these balls in the air. And so I'm very excited to be going forward with that. It's been
awesome.
It's been awesome. And, a big part of that goes out to those of you that have listened and commented and are helping me shape what that podcast is going to be. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And for all of you who are just catching wind of that, you'll see it in our normal One Extraordinary Marriage podcast feed. So for right now, we're going to just keep it all as one. Eventually, we may just split them both apart, but just for now, we're going to go that way, and we'd love to hear your feedback on both One Extraordinary Marriage podcast and the Busy Moms podcast, and you can leave listener feedback at
Ask Elisa at oneextraordinarymarriage.com, or you can call in at 858-754-9937, which is what Katie from Maryland did this week. We love it. A couple weeks in a row now that you guys have been calling in.
Amen.
That's always a good thing. We love hearing your voices. We love getting the emails too, and having you find us on Facebook.
Yep.
But Katie called, and here's what she had to say.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Elisa. I just got finished downloading their last 3 podcasts. I think it's the 5th and the 11th, and then this one. So I'm listening to Making God Want You to Make an Impact, and I thought that nobody has called you. You guys are amazing. You're so amazing. I've told my couples group about you guys. I want to get just everybody I know to start listening to you guys. You guys have great things to say. You've made a real impact on my marriage, and hopefully soon I can get my husband to listen to it with me too, and not just my girlfriend. But keep it up. You guys are amazing. You really are. I love listening to your podcast. So, okay, I got to go. Got to catch up. Oh, by the way, this is Katie from Maryland. Bye.
Katie, thanks so much for calling in. We love that you are sharing us with your couples group, and that we're having an impact on your marriage.
And you need to get your husband to listen too. Come on, guys. Get on and listen to this stuff. It's good for you.
It's good for you. It's like a daily or a weekly dose of medicine. Yeah.
The good kind, though.
The good kind.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind that you want to take, that you know is going to make things better in the long run.
That's right.
It's it's part of what we do here.
That's right.
We get real about marriages and we get real about ours.
That's right.
I know Tony wants to share something that happened this week. Oh, the emails.
The emails between us. Okay.
Yeah.
So this week I had been, what day was this? This was May 21st. So what day was that? That was Thursday.
Thursday?
I think that was Thursday. Yeah. Today's Sunday. Friday. Okay. So on Friday, I was at work and I was just feeling very horny. I mean, I was wanting Elisa that night. And even though I know it was her nights to initiate, I decided to drop her a little email that just, the subject was, I want you. And it just said, I've been thinking about making love to you all day. Can we have a change of scenery tonight? And change of scenery is one of the chapters in our upcoming book, Stripped Down, 13 Keys to Unlocking Intimacy in Your Marriage. And it's vital in our marriages. It's vital to get out of our bedroom, get somewhere different, make love somewhere different, do a different position. And so I just wanted to throw that out to Elisa because I had been feeling that we'd sort of gone our little rut sometimes. We just, all right, we're making love and we're going to do this, and make love. And so I just wanted to throw that out to Elisa. And so my email back from her is thoughts. And I replied promptly with making love under the stars, living room, strip tease show, strip poker, bottle of wine, fruit, candles, music, ...
So needless to say, he gave me a lot of options. It was really, it's been chilly here in San Diego in the evening. So the whole making love under the stars thing.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know I don't do the cold. He's told you that repeatedly. I don't like to be cold.
You don't.
It'll have to be like 90 before we do that one. But it was really funny because he was actually on a phone call earlier this week, and I heard him telling somebody how we had played Naked We. Mm-hmm. And so when the whole change of the scenery came up, I was like, oh, well, I know what we can do. And so we were doing our stuff Friday night, and I don't remember where you were, but I came out and said, I came up to you and said, hey, you want to play some Naked We? And you're like, oh.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah, I don't really get turned down for that.
No,
ever.
It was fun. We played some tennis.
Yeah.
Baseball.
Yeah.
And then ended it up with some bowling where I won.
Yes. That was a funny game because we had a spare.
Or a strike.
In all but 3 out of the 20 frames.
Yeah. That was really good.
We were on that night.
So we're just telling you guys that if you feel like you're in a rut, you're not alone. We get there. We've been there many a times. And sometimes you just have to speak up, put forth some effort, and let your spouse know what's happening. Because if we don't say anything, I could have said nothing. I could have just, said, that's all right. Lisa will initiate tonight. It's a Friday night. She has to initiate because it's her last day of the week to initiate. Or I could make some sort of move. And I chose to do the latter. And I think as we walk down this path of intimacy and growing closer to each other in intimacy, that becomes less fearful. It just does. You throw it out there, and that majority of time your spouse is going to respond positively.
Right. While I may not have, done exactly what he wanted, he gave me, 6 different options, 7 different options.
Yeah.
It was more that, it was on the table for discussion. It was his way of saying, you know what, I don't want to do the same old. And I had 2 choices there.
Mm-hmm.
I could have said, not feeling it tonight. It's my night, but we're just going to do the same old. Or I could say, you know what, he's telling me something.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do with this information? I'm going to choose to serve him and say, you know what? Let's do something different. Let's, what am I in the mood for? I mean, the ball is still in my court.
Right.
And so, the change of scenery was just, I want to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care what it is, but change it up.
Right.
And so, by doing that, it was a really passionate evening.
It was.
And, it's those little things. And that really, rolls right into what we're talking about tonight. And, is your marriage a safe place to share your emotions? Whether that be hurt or anger, frustration, like over the pasta dinner tonight.
Sadness. Happy. Jubilation. Excited.
There are so many emotions that we experience on a daily basis, not only in dealing with our spouses, but just in dealing with life in general.
Mm-hmm.
And your marriage should be the safest place to share those. But I know even in our own marriage, that has not always been the case. And there are still times now where it's not the case.
Right.
It's I'm laughing at the fact that, like I said earlier, Abby asked me 4 times if I was frustrated, because obviously I was very frustrated. It was all over my face, and I wasn't really screaming or doing any of that kind of stuff, but it was just like...
You were very verbal about it.
I was, and partly because I'm trying to teach the kids to be verbal about their emotions. So
No, I understand.
It's an education for them that they don't just get to fly off the handle, which means I have to not fly off the handle.
Right.
But I also knew that I was not so out of control that Tony was going to, immediately go on the counterattack and, shut me down for being upset over his reaction, spitting out the pasta. But that's because we've worked hard.
There's still tension, though.
Oh yeah, I was mad.
Yeah. Oh, there was still tension. Let's not make this all
spit the pasta in the same. You couldn't even swallow one piece of pasta. I was mad.
Right. And I think the thing is being able to share that emotion and have it in a safe place, knowing that even though there was tension between us, here we are 2.5 hours later, and we can laugh about it.
Right.
But I think it would have been a different thing if you would have shown that, and I would have become aggressive or upset with you more so than need be.
Yeah. Because you could have been like, oh, you ruined dinner again and blah, blah, blah.
I didn't say it like that. I just said I need to eat something.
No, but I'm saying you could have said that. I know you didn't.
Yes.
You could have been much more negative.
Right.
Because I'm well aware of your dietary needs.
No, I understand.
I know you've got to, and it frustrates me because I tend to consider myself a good cook.
Yeah.
And so when I have a couple bad meals in a row, I'm like, oh, I'm losing my touch.
Right.
But that's just one example. There have been times in our marriage, when, there's that sense of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Over topics like when we lost Andrew, and we were in such different places dealing with that I didn't feel for a while like I could cry in front of you because we weren't even talking about him. And so all of that sadness,
mm-hmm.
I really had to deal with by myself because I didn't feel like at that point in time it was safe to bring that to you.
Here's my thing. And this is, if anybody knows of a good book or a resource for this, but I think as we grow older, and we're taught from a young age, I think we do it with our children as well, is don't cry. And especially for guys, it's this, you're supposed to be stoic and the rock, so you don't show that emotion. And because of that, I think we're really holding back some great stuff for our spouses. Allowing them to really see who we are and taking off the mask. And I'll say, man, I'll be the first to raise my hand that I struggle with this. There's something about it that I don't know. I've cried on this show a number of times. It does not. I think when we're behind the mics, it does not bug me one bit to show that emotion. But for some reason, when I get out of that, it's tough.
Yeah, I think he's cried more with you guys than he has.
No, get out of here. But you know what I'm saying? And I think for us guys, we're holding back. And again, I'll be the first to raise my hand and say I'm doing it. And I'm trying to learn how to let that go. Last night at church, and I don't know what it's been lately at where we go to church at the church at Rancho Bernardo here, but a lot of the worship, a lot of the messages have been just hitting me hard. Hard. And I'm not shaken, but I'm tearing up for joy. You know, and I don't want to show you that though. And I'm very discreet about how I
thought I saw. Did you have a tear last night?
I did.
I thought
I had a couple.
saw. Yeah.
But see, I'm doing, and I'm turning myself in a way so you're not seeing me, which is weird. I mean, I should be showing you that emotion that I have so much joy for the Lord that it brings tears to my eyes, and I should be able to show that to you. But I hide it, and it, you know, it's like almost when you're holding, you're crying, and you just like, it hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I got to let go of that. Another thing in church, and I don't know if anybody else is like this, is showing emotion by raising my hands up to the Lord during worship. I'm one of those guys, I want to do it, but I don't do it.
Yeah, I don't have that problem.
I know you don't. But as a guy, I do. I don't know. And I know there are many guys who don't.
Right.
But for me, I want to do it, but then I don't. And in the times I do it, I'm like trying to think about it in my head. I'm like, okay, do I do it now or should I do it later? And then it's like, well, someone else just did it, so do I follow them? And dude, I got way too much. I'm thinking way too much into this. Yeah.
You know, I can relate to that though, because I used to be the same way about lifting my hands in worship.
Really?
Yeah, at our previous church, like I would feel kind of like I wanted to, but because that wasn't really a church where that was done very much, I always felt like, ooh, what are people? It's that crazy. What are people going to think?
Right.
CRB is much more open.
No, I understand that.
But so it's a behavior that has become more comfortable just because I've done it. Right. And that's not to say that sometimes I'm not.
Well, I've done it. But it's still awkward, and it's sharing that with you in an intimate moment, because when we are there at church, that is a spiritually intimate moment that we can share together, and we as a couple can come closer to Christ together that way. And I don't know why I'm holding back from allowing myself to do that.
I don't know either. Sorry, no answers here.
I'm looking for your help.
What? Do you want me to hold your arm up for you?
No, but
okay.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and I think...
Don't you feel that we could become spiritually intimate, closer during church service?
If you shared some of that emotion with me, definitely. I think that's true.
I feel awkward.
And maybe that's not you feel awkward sharing that. Are we talking about raising your arms, or are we just talking about showing emotion?
No, I'm saying just in that church setting, I feel awkward doing that.
Showing emotion?
Not so much showing. It's like that that sharing of, okay, I have tears welling up, and then like if you start crying, and it's like a piece that we're watching a video, and it starts tearing you up. And then I feel like I'm tearing up, but I'm like, oh, I can't tear up because I want to make sure that Elisa's okay. So I'll put my arm around you and be like, hey, honey, that's okay. And I'm not tearing up, but I really want to tear up.
You need to let it go.
Dude, I understand that. I'm telling you, these are some issues I'm dealing with. And why it's affecting sometimes what I'm saying, that spiritual intimacy.
Cracks me up when he calls me dude.
It's just part of my vocabulary.
I know, but it's not
like,
usually.
I'm like sweating just talking about this.
He's starting to do his "my hands are hot" sweaty thing. Is it because you're worried about what other people are going to think?
I don't know, and it shouldn't be about that.
I was going to call you on that.
Well, I know, and I think you're right. I think it is. I'm wondering what other people are going to think or say, and it shouldn't be about that. It should be about you and I being closer together in front of our Heavenly Father.
Are you worried about what I'm going to think?
Possibly. I think that's a
you asked
big
for
one.
help.
I know.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Really? I've seen you cry before.
I understand that, honey.
All right.
It's
yeah. I mean my guess is that it's either me or what other people think. And
yeah, all the stuff that goes through my mind, I got to just go, all right, don't even worry about it. Just sing the music and just Praise God. Because if I start thinking about it, then I'm lost. And then I do not fully enjoy being in the presence of God.
Well, I think that goes for any setting. I think if you're not fully sharing your emotions, then you're missing out on the full experience. If you're in a situation where you've got to hold back, and I'm not saying that, there are times when you've got to explode or kind of throw up your emotions on somebody. I mean, obviously there are times when they have to be tempered, but if you find yourself holding things back from your spouse, then you're missing a connection there.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's in church, that spiritual connection of just being able to fully be in worship together, or if it's in a conversation where you're, whatever the circumstances are, you cannot cry, you cannot fully share your joy, you cannot fully share your frustration. There's a connection there. There's an intimacy that's missing because you're holding back. If Tony needs to cry because he's so moved by a video that we're watching, and I'm just an emotional softie. Like, it can be a Hallmark commercial. We'll be watching the end. Like, we were watching the end of Bolt last night with the kids, and so the little girl's stuck in the movie studio, and she's curled up there with Bolt, and there's fire all around her, and I find myself starting to well up because even though I've seen it 10 times, I know she's going to be okay. It still just makes me sad.
I just think of the mom's point of view on that. Yeah.
But that's just, who I am.
Mm-hmm.
The Hallmark commercials make me sad, that kind of stuff.
Right. But it's not like you always show those to me either.
Like when?
I would say there are times when you're not fully showing that emotion to me.
True. I think it's very much what you said. We become conditioned at an early age, and we've got 2 children that love to break down and cry at the drop of a hat for seemingly no reason except for the fact that they're not getting their way.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times when I find myself saying to them, please stop crying. This is not something to cry about.
Right.
Or you can't just scream at me when you're mad. There are all these.
But see, and I think that's the other side of the coin about sharing emotions. I think we hold back on those emotions that truly can allow us to have an intimate relationship with our spouse by sharing those moments when we are sad and we are hurt, or when we have jubilation, we have tears of joy coming down.
Mm-hmm.
I think on the other side of it, anger, frustration, those come out too quick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It kind of goes with the whole, I forget exactly what the quote is, but it's something to the effect of, you treat the ones that you love and are around the most, you treat them the worst because you almost take them for granted.
Yep.
That they're going to be there. I find myself every once in a while saying something to the kids where I'm like, oh, I sound horrible. If I was talking to a coworker like that, or if I was talking to Tony like that, would they take it? No. But I expect my kids to, because...
Or your spouse to.
Or my spouse, because, well, you know what? They're family. They don't, unfortunately, they don't have a choice. And then I feel like scum of the earth after I do it. And I think, anger, Tony's talked about anger. I've talked about anger to some extent. That is an emotion that I have a very short fuse, very impatient. And so that is one that is a constant struggle.
Yeah. Here's something that I was looking up while you were talking.
Okay.
So James 1:19 and 20. My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires.
Wow.
I mean, there it is in God's word.
Mm-hmm.
Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I'll tell you the truth. I become angry much quicker and show that emotion way more to you than I do that of the hurt or the pain that I feel inside. And it's not pain in a bad way, but it's almost, that joy that I have, but I don't want to show it to you. And that's a verse that I've come across just recently, and that's James 1:19 through 20.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all learn from that, in all honesty. And you and I know that with One Extraordinary Marriage, the emails we get, the talks we have with folks who are looking for marriage advice, anger is an issue.
Anger is a huge issue.
It is an issue that is destroying marriages. It really is. And it's the devil just tearing apart at us because it's easy. It's fast. I mean, it's right there. Again, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it says in 20, for man's anger does not bring about righteous life that God desires. So when we get angry, we're not living in God's light by any stretch of the imagination. I think that is destroying our marriages.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're able to show the good side of our emotions, the happy and the joyous times that I think we get so lost in, we could squelch this anger that resides within us.
Because we'd have more of the good stuff to fall back on.
Exactly. And it's part of our society that we constantly look at the negative, and it's how it's just what is sort of marketed to us day in and day out.
Well, sure. It's like, watching the news or reading the news. I mean, you have to dig pretty deep to find the good stories.
You do. And,
there's also the whole, well, if something really good is happening to me, I don't want you to feel jealous, and I don't want you to, I don't want to bring you down or anything like that by sharing my good news.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that good and bad news, good and bad feelings, you got to be able to share those in marriage, and you've got to be able to handle hearing them.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing for us to say, you need to share that with your spouse. You need to share that with your spouse. Well, you and your spouse need to be equipped to hear whatever is coming.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's having a really good day, you need to be able to be in your spouse's corner and be the loudest cheerleader that they've got. You should be their number one fan at all times.
Tough.
It's tough. 'Cause some days you don't want to. Some days they forgot to take out the garbage and you're like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
But they had a great day at work and you've got to, all right, I wish you'd taken out the garbage. Honey, that was great. What happened today?
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're having a bad day, you got to be there to pick them up. They've got to know that you are their number one hug.
Right.
That when life has fallen down around them, they can come home to you, and home is a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Home is a place of open arms and a listening ear. It goes very much back to that James verse that Tony just read. Quick to listen. Your spouse needs to know that you've got the biggest ears around.
Mm-hmm.
And that even if you can't do it immediately, I mean, there are times that Tony calls and I've got 2 screaming kids in the background. I'm like, not a good time. I'll make time for this. We're not going to have a conversation now, and half the time he can hear. And so he knows that,
right.
He knows that that's not happening. But he knows if he says, I need to talk, that we're going to sit down and make that happen. And so that's what I'm encouraging you to think about. Are you the cheerleader jumping up and down when your spouse calls you or texts you or sends you an email or walks in the door and says, this fantastic thing happened to me? Are you just, do you blow it off kind of as, oh, honey, that's great. Glad you had a good day.
You do that.
I'm guilty. I'm not saying I'm perfect at this.
No, I know. I know. I'm just saying you do that.
There are times when I do that, most definitely.
And I know I ignore you times when I'm on the computer. Or when you came out this evening and you popped your head around the corner and you saw me on the computer and didn't say anything and walked back inside.
There was nothing to say.
I beg to differ.
You were on the computer. We were trying to put the kids to bed. You knew what time it was. There was nothing to say.
Yes. Okay.
Because honestly, my face said it all. You knew when I turned around and didn't say anything, because what would I have said? Are you on the computer? Well, that was obvious. I peeked around far enough to see that you were.
Mm-hmm.
Had I said something at that very moment, because I thought about it, and then I said, no, you're just picking a fight.
Yeah.
You're just, because he's going to be like, well, yeah, I'm on the computer. It wasn't a battle to fight at that time.
Right.
We had 2 kids we were trying to get into bed, and, you know, in the general scheme of things, irritated, yes. Major, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to have that fight with you at 6:45? No. Really, I don't. Figured we'd had enough with the pasta that if you need to be on the computer, then you need to be on the computer for a few minutes, and if you heard the kids screaming, you'd come in.
Right.
But that's part of it. You know, I knew I knew that would come up. Because I knew you saw enough in my face to know that I was bothered by that.
Right.
And I think that's something that we've really had to work on, that it become comfortable to say, maybe we're not going to talk about it right now, but we are going to talk about it.
Right.
You know, it's not good or bad. You know, if I'm not as happy for you as I should be sometimes, you let me know.
I think we also try to take time each and every day to share what's happening. What doesn't happen, though, are those emotions are not. I mean, it becomes almost business-like, and it's, okay, what do you need to talk about? What do I need to talk about? And that's the tougher part, I think, that we face in marriage, is being able to really show those emotions and not, it's what I talked about and what's talked about in Bo's Cafe. It's taking off that mask and knowing when you share, you are not judged or ridiculed or loved less, but you are loved more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough to do.
Well, it's because our world has conditioned us.
No, yes.
We've been conditioned to think the opposite is true, that if we are completely honest with somebody with our emotions, if we bring them all of our junk,
right,
we've been conditioned that people don't want to deal with our garbage.
I know, but we're not talking about people. We're talking about the closest person in our lives. That we say is the closest person in our life. You know what you know?
Right.
If you are the most important and closest person in my life, I should not have any fear of judgment or ridicule or being loved less. I should know that through God's grace, you are going to love me more.
But you don't always feel that way, and neither do I.
No. But that is the tough part of constantly looking at ourselves and looking at our marriage and constantly growing and putting forth effort. So one day we can say we've done that, mm-hmm. or we have accomplished something that is truly amazing. And I'll say, yes, there are times when we still don't do that. Mm-hmm. But when we look back to when we started our 60 days of sex, you look at where we were then to where we are now, we shared so much emotion then,
mm-hmm.
and so much gratitude and enjoyment and pain and frustration. It was amazing to see all of that which happened. And it taught us a lot.
Right.
And I think that is what, you go through those times and those periods. It is. It's one of those things where you're on target. I mean, it's just like boom, everything it's on all cylinders. You're just, mm-hmm. you're hitting it. And then there are times when you're on less than all cylinders.
Right.
And I think there are times when, for us, when we've been very sexually intimate with each other, those are times when we really explode in our emotional state.
Mm-hmm. Well, so much of that has to do with the fact that when you're being sexual, I think, at least is true in our marriage, I mean, we're giving all to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but even in the bedroom, I struggle sometimes with showing, you know, full emotion
right
to you, and to just kind of letting myself go with the wild abandon.
Yes, we're still working on that. We were working on that Friday night.
I don't. I know my kids would probably sleep through an earthquake, but there's still I don't want anybody to hear me. And
what's the worst could happen? They come knocking on the door?
Yes.
Okay. And if they ask what happened, just say, hey, Mommy and Daddy were talking.
Yeah.
We got to work on you with that.
I know. That's something that really frustrates you.
It does. Because I think that is a time emotionally that I would love to see you be more. What did you say?
Verbal?
Yes.
I didn't say that, but I know that's what he wants me to say.
Yeah.
It's true. I'm not always as verbal as clear.
Because it's an indication to me, knowing that, is this enjoyable, Elisa? And to hear you say yes, or through moans or groans, it allows me to size up the situation and go, okay, she is enjoying this. So let's move forth. When I hear nothing, I'm sort of going, is she enjoying this? Yes, no, maybe so. So, you know what, though? We have something very special coming up, and we'll be able to work on it. The first annual 7 Days of Sex Challenge.
There you go.
We got 7 days of making love again.
I know, that's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It's 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
2 weeks from today, June 6th.
Through the 12th.
Through the 12th.
And if you haven't heard about this, we have launched the first annual 7 Days of Sex Challenge. And this is something that Elisa and I did actually last year by ourselves, leading up to our retreat, our marriage retreat in the desert for the church at Rancho Bernardo, and we did 7 days straight. And this year, we planned on doing it again, and after talking to some people and putting it